Hello, welcome back. So let's just basically take what we ended up with over here. I've just moved some nodes around to make it look a little bit cleaner, but I haven't changed anything. And let's get our hexagon mesh to play nice with the drone. So time for some more tricky masks, I think. So we have that. Let's take a look at what we have here and split out our extra image planes as well. Actually, before I do that, I just feel like the drone's a little bit dark here, so I am going to boost these reflection layers a little bit. Just to pick the drone out a little bit from the background there. Okay, so jumping back to the hexagons, we have our beauty pass, which is the entire thing with the reflective shader, and let's duplicate that and try and remember what other layers we have. We've got that Fresnel layer, which I'm not sure we need at the moment. We've got the hex layer, so I'll grab that now. And we have the diffuse color. So I can actually use this layer here to generate a mask to color correct whatever we end up with for the hexagons, because this gives us our nice leading edge and cooler colors as it falls off and fades away. So before we do any of that, let's just merge this on top. Let's move that one up and let's just merge this over here. And see how it looks. So that's actually working better than I expected straight off the bat. That hexagon mesh is becoming more and more transparent, and then pretty much is completely transparent by the time you see the underlying drone. So it's a little bit too obvious, that edge where it disappears, but it's actually a pretty good connection when you combine those two renders. So I'm quite happy with that. Obviously I'm boosting the color here, so I can even take that off. And it's less noticeable, but it's very dark, so we do need to boost some of these values a little bit. So that looks good. I'm happy with that. So let's see where we can take this now. We need to introduce our outlines, and we have this color to play with as well. So let me first do something with these outlines. I'm going to just add them now to our hexagons here. So that's what they look like raw. Can maybe color correct this a little bit. Get some more blue. Just make it feel like it's really just subtly lighting up those edges with a nice blue tint. And we might use these again later on. I'm thinking particularly if I go ahead and add that glow setup over here that we've used before, I'll make sure that this is actually glowing and not the geometry itself. So potentially we split off here. Let me do that now, just so we have something to work with. So I'll come down here. We have our blur. So I'm going again with the 3 blur glow. Ooh, I'm getting some pretty bad edges here. Trying to figure out where that's coming from. This is because I'm merging on our hexagons here, and I'm getting some strange alphas. Here we go. So if you look down here, I'm checking my alpha values and I have alphas of 2. So I don't want to burn in and avoid that problem by burning in the hexagons, because these are proper geometry with correct alpha and reflections and stuff. But I guess I'm adding the alpha here. So I have an alpha on my outlines and I have this alpha, and I'm adding this emissive layer, but I shouldn't be adding the alpha. So I set alpha to do nothing, and let's fix the problem. So again, with the 3 blurs, and a color corrector for each one. And this seems like it takes a while, but trust me, it's worth it. Merge them together. Burn, switch off alpha. Okay, so I'll start with all the color correctors down to 0 and just introduce the small one, then the medium one just a little bit more and a bit more blurry, and then the big one. So just trying to balance these out for a very subtle glow there. And I don't, like I said, I don't want the whole drone to glow, so I need to try and separate out what we're looking at. So for example, I can take whatever we end up doing here, I can take that and subtract our hexagons. So I have this hexagon color that has the same alpha as well. Can subtract those, and now we're left with whatever's behind those. So there's some bright areas there, and our drone itself. So here I'm going to make sure that the drone's not too visible. Actually, I'll put this over here. So we just darken everything down. Then we're subtracting our hexagons, and then merging back on just the outlines. So let's just see if this works. So I'm still getting the super bright spots from the drone itself, which I don't really want. And I think my glow is too bright overall. So I'm just going to rebalance these, make sure it feels like I'm picking up the actual emissive areas just themselves. And go something like that. Let's clip the white values here. So for now, that's all we really need, is just something subtly glowing there. Just going to merge this on at 0.5, so it's just very subtle. Okay, so we have this, and now if I adjust this color here, I can either exclude it or include it from the part that's going into the glow. So in this case, I'm going to actually just contrast this up a little bit for the main render here. Maybe desaturate slightly. That goes back in there, but the one that's going through the glow is untouched. Now let's introduce some of that color into here. So I'm not actually going to use the color. I want to first make a good mask from this that has a sharp or bright leading edge and then a slightly less bright faded off area. So here in the bitmap I can use luminance and then readjust my values to make sure I'm just getting this brightest bit. So that's very much just the leading edge. And then I can have a second one. And move this range a little bit back. Soften it a little bit. And then let's add this on top. Or merge. So that gives me a nice contrasty mask I can use here. And I actually want a little bit more of this one. And now I can just use the luminance, or in this case, because I've put it through the bitmap, it's the same as an alpha, and just color correct our hexagons. So here we'll boost these a little bit, add a bit more blue. So all in all, just make it feel slightly more like something emissive is going on. And that gives a really nice little bright edge. And we have full control of how broad that selection is. I've just broken it. So somewhere around like that. So I can play with this for a while. Let me not spend too much time on it. Okay, we merge that back on. We can still see our outlines nicely. We can see the leading edge here. We know that we're already brightening up the drone itself. What I'm missing is seeing some of that internal highlight detail I've added actually shining through underneath the hexagons because we're just merging directly on top. So before this merge here, I can take this and try and add those bright areas into the hexagon render, just basically as if it's shining through, as if it's so bright it's shining through. So here we are. We don't want to do the alpha, and I want to color correct this to a point where I'm pretty much just seeing these highlights. And actually it might be better to take this render itself. So just the emissive area. So this is our hexagons. This is adding that emission back in, and we need to base that off of the actual hexagon geometry as well. So the best way to do that is probably to put a mask in here. So it kind of works. I might backtrack on this. We just want something subtle. And we can always increase the distance that emission pass on the drone goes back behind the leading edge of the hexagons as well. And at this point I'm going to throw in our grade. So a little bit of contrast here, a little bit desaturated. Boosting the highlights might be a little bit too crazy in this case because it's super bright. And let's add a little bit more green back in. Yeah, we've got some super bright points here. So let's see where we are and just recap what we've done. So our most complicated masking situation was making sure we had enough interesting things from that mask render to drive the main drone render. And in terms of the hexagons, we basically just added those layers all together and tried to affect the main render as best we can. And we've added in a subtle glow as well. Then we have this little area here which is defocusing and displacing the environment render. So overall I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking. It's a little bit too contrasty and the bright areas are super bright. So that just needs to be tweaked back down to something more realistic. You can see now it's so bright that the outlines are actually white. But I think it's looking pretty cool. So I'll just spend a little bit of time tweaking basically color values and intensities until I'm happy with it. And I think this is where we'll say it's the end of week 5. And for the second week of this effect, which is week 6, we'll basically be jumping back into Houdini and adding a few extra detail effects. So what I have in mind is, because we're seeing the inside of the drone, I want to add some lines, something that looks like these plates are being projected onto the surface. So that should be a pretty quick thing to set up. Say take the center point of the drone and shoot lines out wherever there's a hexagon. And then maybe some electrical arcs running along the surface of the drone as well. And I think what an electrical style effect can add here is just a nice geolight as well. So we get little areas of the drone being lit up by electricity. So just looking through this one more time. Yeah, pretty happy with how this is looking. It's a cool effect. It just needs a lot of balancing, a lot of tweaking to make sure all the colors are matching together and it doesn't feel like these are two separate things. So let me clean this up and I'll catch you in week 6, where we'll be just adding as much cool stuff to this effect as we can. So I'll see you then.